I'm going to work on my good copy of the perspective drawing assignment. So as you can see here, I have a building in 1-point perspective, which happens to be Zaha Hadid's Heydar Aliyev Center in Azerbaijan. So I now have the task of adding some midtones, shadows, and highlights using the materials that I have here. So I have compressed charcoal, which is quite a bit darker, that will create some really nice shadows. I have willow charcoal, which is more of a dark to light gray tone, really nice for getting an overall mid-tone and some light shadows. I have white chalk, which I'll add at the end for some highlights. And I have a blending stump. So I have some of these for the grade 10 to 12s, and grade 9s, you're welcome to purchase one as well. So I'm going to start in by just adding a little bit of shading to the areas that I think need it the most. So I've worked from a photograph. So I am going to kind of tone in the areas that would be in shadow. So my source of light is over here. So it's really important that you have an idea of where your light comes from. Wherever your light comes from, the shadows will be on the opposite side of your page. So that's really important to note. If you don't have a strong sense of light, everything ends up being really flat. So choose a side, top corner, on either side, and then that way the drop shadows will all happen on the opposite side. So I'm going to start in just with some light midtones. And what I want to do is I want to kind of shade with a direction. You can use your finger or the blending stump. I tend to just use my finger because it's faster. Shade in the direction that the building is already in. So this side of the building is elliptical in shape, so my strokes are going to be elliptical as well. And I'm just going to lighten that up. Remember, with charcoal, it is hard to get the highlights back. So I would say overall shade it a little lighter to begin with, and then you can always darken it after. So this is just kind of the initial step to kind of add in some of the shading. So you can either use the tip of your charcoal, which will make a harder line, or you could break it in half and use the wide edge. It's a little bit tricky on the willow because it is so thin. It's easier on the compressed. All right, so I'm going to pop in some darker shadows now with my compressed charcoal, and I'm going to use the tip to outline any of the areas that are going to hit the highlights. So this edge here is almost pure white in my photograph, so therefore I'm going to add the really dark edge right up against that highlight. And then I can pull with my compressed charcoal to use the side quite easily. And I just want to remember to follow the guidelines I've already put in with my fine liner. Okay? You don't need to over blend with your fingertip. You don't want to rub out all those dark tones, but I tend to just kind of make sure that they're connected, and at some points they need to be softened a little bit. Okay, so you're starting to see a little bit more shape there. Remember, when you're shading further away, that you can make things a little less refined and detailed. So shapes that are further away are harder for us to perceive in such detail. So if you're looking at a building that's, a kilometer away, you're not going to have as much detail as something that's just a few feet away. So this is just going to be kind of barely detailed in the background here, and all the fine liner lines, I'm going to just soften those out with my willow charcoal unless there's a strong highlight there. Okay, and now I see a little bit of shading going on here, and I can soften that with my fingers. And I'll go in with my highlights at the end to try and add to that. So I'm going to do a time lapse now so that I can finish it up a little bit faster.